montage of pictures of himself as a boy of 7, when he had first come to live with her, as a student in high school and in college, as a director with the poster for his first play, and at the awards ceremony where he had won his first Tony for direction of Wilderness, and, closest to Constance's hand, an Italian box, elaborately carved, inlaid with gold and amber and polished to a soft black luster. Inside were letters, hundreds of them, crammed together, the oldest looking at the front. Luke ran his finger along the top of them, making a sound like a stick dragged along a picket fence. It seemed that the same handwriting was on all of them. He took one out at random and opened it. "Dear, dearest Constance, I want to thank you again, and again, and again, and again, if I only knew different ways to do it, for your wonderful, warm, generous encouragement last night. When you said I did a fine job playing Peggy, I knew I really was an actress, and I'd be one for the rest of my life, because Constance Bernhardt said so. The play is all you, of course, and probably no one else even noticed me, but it means the world to me just to be on stage with you. My mother said 16 was too young for summer stock, but I had to try, and I'm so glad I did. Thank you again. With my eternal love, Jessica." Jessica, Luke thought. A young Jessica Fontaine, at the very beginning of her career, bubbling with excitement. He glanced at the date at the top of the letter. 24 years ago. So she would be 40 now. And she's been writing all these years, which means my grandmother was writing too. A long friendship. But Constance told me that more times than I could count. He pulled out another letter at random and unfolded it. "Dearest Constance, you won't believe this, but Peter Calder got the male lead, which means I've got to do 2 love scenes with him. Wasn't it just last year that you and I swore we'd never get within 10 feet of him? Well, here I am, and I'll be fighting off his gelatinous hands for the run of the play." Luke burst out laughing. Gelatinous. The perfect word for Peter Calder. It was the reason Luke and almost every other director had stopped giving him parts years ago. But Jessica had had 2 love scenes with him. When? He read the date. 17 years ago. She'd gone from a bit part in a play with his grandmother to a role opposite Calder, who in those days was one of the top actors on Broadway and in films, in only 7 years. He had forgotten how swiftly her success had come. That was the year, he remembered, that he had gotten his first job on Broadway. He had been 28, and for 6 years, since graduating from college, he'd been directing plays for small, struggling theater companies in lofts, church basements, and old movie houses. They drew tiny audiences that often did not fill their 40 or 50 seats, but occasionally critics came, and soon people in the theater were talking about him. Lucas Cameron's masterful direction, began one review in the New York Times, and 2 months later he was offered a job as assistant director of a Broadway play. That was what he remembered about that year. Oh, and Claudia, Luke thought. That was the year we were married. Idly he took a 3rd letter from the box about halfway in. A newspaper clipping fell from it, and he unfolded it. It was from the International Herald Tribune, picked up from an Associated Press story in the Vancouver Tribune. Fatal derailment in Canada. More than 50 passengers were killed and 300 injured Monday evening about 10:30 p.m. when the Canada Flyer derailed in Fraser River Canyon, 80 miles northeast of Vancouver. Using searchlights and rescue dogs, teams from nearby towns searched through the night in the wreckage and along the rocky banks of the Fraser River in temperatures that fell well below freezing. Among those rescued near dawn on Tuesday morning was Jessica Fontaine, world-renowned stage and film star, who had been in Vancouver for the past 4 months, starring in a production of The Heiress. She is listed in critical condition. The train, bound for Toronto, had left Vancouver at 8 p.m. Cause of the accident, the worst in the history of Canadian rail travel, is not known. Luke remembered the story. There had been rumors that Jessica Fontaine was on her deathbed, that she would